on? Or are you not doing video?
It should. Oh, start video. Let's do that.
There we
Um,
go.
how's that?
Awesome.
Man, you look good
All
as hell.
right.
How'd you do that?
Well, wow, thank you. I'll take it. Yeah. I knew you'd be dressed to the nines, man. You always are.
That's awesome. Well, gentlemen, this is live. Live without a net.
Right
welcome,
on.
I love it.
welcome.
My favorite kind of live.
Say again.
I said it's my
Your
favorite
favorite
kind
kind
of
of live?
live.
Yes, absolutely, man. And we did it just under the wire here. It's funny. Anthony and I were just joking around about this new tech era we're in. So first of all, welcome. Here we are at MakeWeirdMusic.com and Make Weird Music in general, and just wow, great to be with you two gentlemen, and Kurt Morgan and Chris Opperman, and
Thank you for having.
absolutely, it is a new frontier with this technology, and one of the things we're going to talk about is technology, of course. Excuse me as I get a few other things going, but technology has its ups and downs, and one of the ups is here we are. This is like our, our own network, our own TV station here, our own cable access. You guys are a lot younger than me, but I remember when cable TV started, and you had cable access channels, and so in a way we're doing that. Um, well, great. Let's. How are you? First off, how are you
In a
both
way,
doing? Doing that. Oh, let's get rid of that. How are you doing, Chris? How's New Jersey? How's everyday life
Good.
right now? Teaching and
It's
things.
good. I teach a few classes from Montclair State and one from Rutgers, and I have daddy school with my 4-year-old, and I have a new baby, and that's a lot.
That is.
And a great new album produced by Kurt Morgan.
That's right. And a COVID beard. I love the COVID beard. And Kurt, how are you? Give us a snapshot.
I'm well, man. I'm holding up well in the in our new world here. Our whole lifestyle changed since March. I was on the road, and it's like the rug got pulled out from underneath us.
You
So
know,
wow, I think I went through the mourning phase, which lasted about a month. I have these moments where it comes back in waves, where you just kind of shaking. Did this happen, and what do we do next? But I'm staying busy. I have a couple projects I've been working on that, unfortunately, I have to keep them quiet for the moment. But yeah,
sure,
I'm
sure.
doing well, keeping busy, creative, and doing my best to stay positive and look for the future. Look toward the future for when live music comes back, and
Yeah.
we all get to do what we love.
Can we announce the Deftones project you're doing with Alex Lifeson and Ozzy Osbourne? Is that? Am I? Oh, uh,
Uh, that would change
oh.
everything for me, and I think the audience too.
Well, that no. Great that you have a positive attitude, and we got to take these things in stride, right? Make lemonade from lemons. I believe you would have been out this year with King Crimson, or no,
No, Dweezil.
with Dweezil.
Or
Oh, right. No, actually, my bad. The King Crimson, the Zappa guys were going to do that tour.
Yeah,
The
Ahmed's band
alumni.
is King Crimson. Dweezil's
Yeah,
band is Dweezil.
I forgot. Yeah, I just mixed it up. I thought Dweezil was opening for Crimson, but yeah, other way around. But
no,
but you guys were going to be on tour though, just in general, this
yeah,
summer. Yeah,
we were
you.
in the middle of,
Yeah,
we still had a couple of weeks,
yeah.
and we all, they pulled the plug and we all went home.
It was weird when
So
he just did that gig, that last gig in Tarrytown or whatever. I was already confined by my universities. They're already like, do not leave your house.
That's true, right? I remember.
So I missed the gig, and it was really sad and weird.
Yeah. Well, I always,
yeah, I,
I met you, Kurt, just once at one of the Dweezil gigs, and you guys,
yeah,
just incredible band. I mean, we just said hi real quick. I didn't think we exchanged names, but I know Ryan a little bit just through the web, but
yeah.
can't say enough about how great that group is. So, well, let's get
Thank you.
to this incredible new project that you're both involved in. Of course, full disclosure here. Let's start there, Chris. Full disclosure. I am a big Chris Opperman fan going way back to at least the time of Mike Keneally dancing. I think I knew you before that, though.
Yeah, I already performed with you in '99. I played with you in Boston.
Was that? Yeah, that earlier. So you came and you sat in with us, right? Project Object.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then you very kindly drafted me into your band, and we did a show. What year
In New
was
York
that?
in 2005. Yeah.
2005. And when was dancing?
Dancing was 2000.
Yeah, a little earlier. So we'd cross paths a bunch, and so I love your music. Let's go right to the year 2020, the year that the year that would not stop, and chamber music from hell. Let's start with the title, because of course, as Zappa fans, what's funny? I put it on. I was listening to it and really loving it just a couple months ago, and I'm going, man, this is great. Chris is taking us all over the place, and I'm listening, and about 5 tracks in or something, I said, "Oh, this reminds me a little bit of Zappa, Jazz from Hell." Like there was some rhythmic motion, and I said, "Oh, yeah, Jazz from Hell." So, what was there a conscious nod to that, or was it just?
Oh yeah, when I was talking to Kurt originally about the project, I wanted to describe to him what I wanted to do, and in those 4 words, I told him exactly what I wanted to do with no further explanation necessary.
Right. That's it. Okay. Good.
That was
Great.
it. And then we never had a better name than that, and there was none. So.
Sure. Because of course, you could get to the hell reference in a bunch of different pathways, and tritones and devilish grins.
Well, and trying
all
to
kinds of
figure out
things.
what hell we were going to choose, I think, was a big part of the fun, because we didn't want it to be a religious hell,
Right.
and I thought a hell of our own making
Right.
was a lot more interesting.
Absolutely. And yes, whether it's France or whatever. And of course, there's a lot of the whole thing is very referential to artificial intelligence, and with titles like "Are we living in a computer simulation?" So I'm loving the kind of the William Gibson cyborg kind of little references. Are you a big fan of that kind of sci-fi, The Matrix and Black Mirror and all those kinds of things?
Black Mirror is great. Most of the Hitchhiker's Guide would be my primary science fiction interest.
That's yeah.
And Twin Peaks and stuff like that. But
Sure.
most of the stuff from the album I got from listening to podcasts about supercomputers and artificial intelligence and trying to determine consciousness, like robots become conscious and they need rights and stuff like that. So these are big problems that are going to take away a lot of jobs in a lot of markets, and we have to start thinking about like what is life with robots,
Right.
because that's what's coming.
It's
It's like already here.
It is. Just today or last night there was a news item that came across on my phone of the army testing with these robot dogs. I don't know if you saw that. The robot dogs terrify me, because that's a whole other. And Kurt, tell us a little bit about your sci-fi and AI interests.
Well, as you were mentioning this, Chris, it just randomly popped into my head that I think another artist has attempted this similar message. Johnny Guitar Watson, 1985, Strike on Computers.
Oh.
I mean, you got to give it up to Johnny, right?
Always.
I mean, you might think it's funny now, but in 1985, he's saying, we need to strike on computers before there ain't no jobs, So he had his finger on some kind of cosmic pulse. So thank you, Johnny.
In a number of ways. Yeah, and I love Johnny, but I don't know that track. I got to go back and check that out.
Yeah, one of those records that I think a lot of folks look at as a throwaway.
Right.
I mean, he always hilarious stuff, but that particular one is a little more synth driven.
Sure.
1985. So you can imagine the aesthetic happening there. But
right. No, that's. I'm surprised I missed it, because I will check that out now, especially with the theme.
Check it out. There's some fun tracks in here. But as for my take on AI and science fiction, I mean, I'm definitely interested and concerned. I think it's an interesting topic because I think it's fertile ground for creativity, which Chris really took advantage of here. I mean that the record is not only musically ambitious, but he ties it all together with a really thoughtful science fiction story. So, you know, coming back around to the Zappa references, I was doing a little, you know, refresher last night before this interview, and I was looking through the liner notes, and one of the things that occurred to me was that it felt like going through Joe's garage for the first time. I don't know if you remember that experience of listening to the record with an elaborate story in the liner notes
Sure.
that add to the whole thing. It's there's more in there. It's like this is a gift that keeps on giving. You can listen to the music. It's dense. You get repeated listenings out of that, and then plus you can tie it in with this story that Chris has written. So it's one of those records that could be like a desert island kind of scenario where you just get a lot out of it, you know. And that definitely reminded me of a lot of Zappa's work, Civilization Phase 3 and things like that. It poses a lot of questions. You can enjoy it on the musical level, and you can get in deep if you want to. So
That's
it's
so
cool.
so perfectly put, Kurt. And I was going to bring up Civ Phase 3, one of my favorites, and that's yeah, a lot of crossover there. And I agree, it's put together so well with the libretto and the story, pulling it all together. You know, Chris, you might have a novel in you. Have you thought about doing something?
I mean, when I was a kid, I used to write a lot of prose, and then I stopped entirely, and then I came back to it for this record. I went from Kurt and I had this scenario kind of worked out, but we didn't codify the story. And then I thought, well, it's not that cool to like give somebody something and be like, here's part of the story, and you figure out the rest of it. So I thought I'll write the whole story, and everyone have the whole story, and not make them wonder what the story is. You know.
Right. Okay. No. Well,
And man, Kurt, that was such nice things you said about me. Thanks, bro.
Hey, man, it really, you know, it was a realization going through the liner notes last night. It felt that way. You know, you split it into acts, and yeah, it's one of those things that I didn't realize until just last night. So, you know, I'm part of the audience too. So it's amazing, man.
Thank you.
no, it is,
You're welcome.
and the multiple layers it works on. The AI topic and the AI humor. There's a lot of satirical little moments. There's a lot of humor, a lot of sarcasm, a lot of really great, and then just serious statements about where are we heading with some of this AI. And then on the meta level, there's some sequencing. There's you've programmed in parts, and there's artificial intelligence kind of doing this music. So there's this meta level. Give me an idea of that, because I tell you, some of the sounds on it, and I asked you about this in a text or two. Some of the string sounds, synthetic sounds, woodwind sounds. Sometimes the line is blurred. Give us an idea. I know you've obviously got live drummers, and you're playing some piano, and tell us a little bit about
one of the
split.
funniest meta jokes in the album is, are we living in a computer simulation? On an album with tons of fake instruments is all real instruments, people actually playing them. There are no computers.
Right.
So I
That's
felt
right.
like
Yeah.
it's like an emphatic, and I'm not going to answer the question, but you can find an answer in there.
Yeah. No. That's good enough. Yeah. That's good enough. Um, the yeah, because there's of course two great live drummers on there, Marka Miniman and Ryan Brown. They're on there. And Kurt, tell us a little bit of your history with Chris. When did you meet? What's the first time you worked together? If this isn't it.
Well, I mean, it's been a blur. I know it. I spoke with him on the phone when I was working for Gail Zappa,
Mhm.
and you know, for people that home that don't know, I was the librarian for all of Frank Zappa's manuscripts for about 6 years. So I worked for Gail on
Right.
that job, and Chris had submitted a version of Blessed Relief and was looking for approval. And I remember Gail telling me to listen to it and then letting her know what I thought. And that's how I remember speaking with Chris for the first time. And I loved the track. I immediately told her, you should approve this. If there's any track that, he gets it. It's performed beautifully and with respect and love,
Sure.
So that was it. I helped him get that through. And then I did some research and listened to his music, and I realized that he was really doing what I'm interested in doing, which as big of Zappa fans as we both are,
Right.
I think my personal feeling on my relationship to his music, being that he is sort of an artistic musical hero to me, that it's kind of like operating under the shadow of Beethoven, or what you hear people talking about. It's just, he, in my world, is so unique, so prolific, so above most music for me, that what his uniqueness is the ingredient that makes me interested in doing my own thing. In other words, I don't want to be a second-rate Zappa. I'd like to be a first-rate Kurt Morgan.
That's great.
And it's difficult. It's difficult to when you have a figure like that his style is just so unique. Now, if you really know his music, you can point to his influences, and
Sure.
they absolutely make his music. But to my ears, for the longest time, it just felt like music from another planet. And I couldn't, it's just, mind blowing to think of how someone could do that. But anyway, Chris was doing that. And in my opinion, I could hear that he was influenced by this, by Frank's music, but he was continuing in his own vein, true to himself. And it's one of the hardest things to do, I think. So respect, I love and respect Chris for doing that, because I think he's one of the best out there for continuing that tradition in a way that doesn't feel like imitation. So there you go. That's why I was happy to work on this project. We're to help him realize that and bring my tools to the table.
To the table. Wow, what a great that's like back in the day we'd call it a slip cover kind of bio that would go inside a record that which maybe it will.
Important stuff.
Yeah, no, and I concur on all that. There is a unique spirit and voice that comes through in Opperman's music, and great point, the comparison to Beethoven, which that's a tough one, and I know Chris is sitting there going, guys, just yeah. but the connection being a wonderful and inventive pianist, a really great keyboard player, which that was the key with Beethoven. He could just go out with a piano, and that's the whole evening. And we would read about his biography. He's actually kind of one of the first composers to really conquer that and go out and be a piano player. I think you both know that, studying music history. The modern piano with its metal frame is thanks to Beethoven.
Well, on some of the Beethoven scores, he anticipates the longer key structure, right? The lower keys. And
Right.
so he'll have notes that are in there, and they don't exist, but they're in there for the future pianos when they do have those notes.
Right.
And that's like really cool to look at.
That's
And then when he had that, he has a movement in his last piano sonata where everything's like all these dotted rhythms. So it's kind of like predicting jazz in a way.
a lot of jazz, and also in that never performed 10th symphony, I hear some stuff that's kind of gets into some jazz density and even some Mahler type things I'm sure you've heard that, right? The 10th Symphony. Yeah, somewhere out there you can find it. They glued it together, like, because he had it in sketches. But there's a 10th Symphony, and it was recorded, and yeah, you can hear some pretty heavy stuff. So well, coming back to 2020 from 1890 or wherever we just were. Let's see. When did Beethoven die? No, he died like 1827. Sorry. So
Yeah.
From 1790. So coming back to here, I'm going to just jump around a little bit. I really enjoyed the Cribbage Variations. I watched your interview on that, and that's just really cool. And then there's a tie-in to another brilliant musician who also plays all these impossible Zappa parts as Kurt does, Scott Tunis. So tell our audience a little bit about that for anyone who might have missed that. Just a little idea of the cribbage.
So I was emailing Scott Tunis about Dupree's Paradise, trying to find out how the 1988 version got put together, and he wrote back about how annoyed he was that he'd commissioned someone in the band, who would remain nameless, to continue Webern Opus 24 and write a nonette, and he offered to pay them, but they just wanted to play Cribbage and Keneally on the bus and not do any work. And I read this email and I'm laughing, and then I was like, well, Cribbage and 12-tone music, I'm like, I wonder how I could combine them, and then the joke became like a very serious reality.
Yeah.
Like Scott was very shocked when I sent him the score.
and it ties in
Figured
with.
It out.
Say again.
I was just saying, Chris, I can see that moment where it's a eureka moment of melding 12-tone ribbon.
Well, that's great. Well,
out the room, and
Well, one of my favorite human beings, and one of the most acerbically funny men on earth, and wishing him and everyone in the Bay Area the best right now with all these red skies and smoke and all that. So, hoping Scott and everyone is okay. But that kind of overlapped with you working on your PhD, isn't that so,
right,
Chris? Which you now have, right?
No,
are you
I'm
not?
still
You're still working. Okay, you're still working on it. Okay, yeah, I see. I'm gonna glance over here and see because we're live, so we got some people. Let's see, a lot of people saying hello.
Hi, people are saying hello.
Yeah, Henry and James and
Berg.
Say again.
Town.
Oh,
I said hello, people in internet land town. Bergville.
That's right. John Goober, Dan Cooper. We got some people from Netherlands and all around the place. So let's see if anyone has any questions. Dan says, chamber music from Hell is fantastic. I'm sure Frank would have loved it. Well, I think so. That's a good. Wetware Gridlock says, Johnny Guitar, love him. Absolutely. And there's Tom Woolley from Sam Ash and Paramus, who knows Chris.
What's up?
Yeah. And okay. Well, you guys can hit the guys with questions here. Someone says 2 movements of Beethoven's 10th were completed some years ago. Yeah, and yeah, I remember even 20 years ago I had a Beethoven box set, and there it was. So someone else says Cribbage Variations is simply astounding. Yes, it is. Says Dan. Yeah, and they love that the backstory is filling it out. That's great. So let's go a little bit to where you performed it and you debuted it, and I'm so happy to hear that it was done here, because that's my alma mater is Rutgers. I actually never graduated. I went there for about 3 years and never finished. But tell us about that, because in November you premiered it, and what was that ensemble like? And give a little picture of that.
Helix is great. Rutgers has their own dedicated new music ensemble. Kynan Johns is the conductor. He's a very passionate. What's the word I'm looking for? Advocate for new music.
Good.
And they did a great job playing it. But to make a performance where everyone was playing perfectly in time, would be really expensive.
Right. Yes.
And so Kurt, I think, did an amazing job making all the instruments sound like they're real and fooling your ear into thinking that you're not hearing synthesizers, that you're hearing flutes and clarinets and violins and stuff.
Sure.
And I think I don't think Kurt ever answered that question before, so let's let Kurt answer it.
And the question being what? How did I do that?
Yes.
This is definitely one of the most challenging projects that I've ever, worked on. And I think it took well over a year for the entire record to be completed. And a lot of it for me was trial and error in using different sample libraries that I had. I have a bit of an obsession with collecting sounds.
Yeah.
There's just, as a composer, I just find that it's worth pursuing finding the best sounds that you can, because particularly if you work in MIDI, your old compositions new life can be breathed into them,
Of course.
when you get a new library. And I had a pretty good sized library of different things that I had collected. And one of the challenges about this record is that it's chamber music. So you have one instrument on a part. So something like a string section, a sample is a little more forgiving on the ear in terms of realism because of the amount of players. But you had all of these exposed parts in Chris's music that just required the best that I could deliver. And a lot of it, I ended up going with a particular library and software package called Note Performer.
Okay.
That's put on Wallander instruments. And it's relatively inexpensive. And like I have libraries that are much more expensive, but there's something about it's the sample library is integrated with artificial intelligence, which it's designed to take music notation specifically and convert it into usable data. So in other words, like dynamics and articulations are seamlessly integrated with their sample libraries. So a lot of what you hear in terms of the woodwinds are from Note Performer.
Okay.
I did blend these every now and then where it just there was one part I didn't quite like the sound of, where I would grab another library and use that. But for me, it was about the performance. It's just so crucial to making the ear believe it, you know?
Right.
So it really took a long time. I mean, but what I found was Note Performer was the best for me to handle a score like Cribbage Variations. If you're starting with material that is very meticulously put together, and all of this information like dynamics and all of those subtleties needed to come across for the performance to reflect what was on the score. If you start with that, you're in good shape. But there was a lot of hair pulling moments of like I didn't know if I'd ever see the end of it.
Right.
You know?
I mean, one interesting thing was when Kurt sent the first version of the Cribbage Variations, like really early on, it was apparent to me that my score was not notated enough because there wasn't enough dynamics. Things that musicians, the live Helix musicians were doing instinctively or through direction from Kynan were no longer happening. And I had to go back and make one more round of edits to really, make sure I had all articulations and enough crescendos and decrescendos, dynamics, and like one more very serious editing pass after Kurt's first take on it.
That's all very interesting.
Nice.
technical stuff. This is great to hear, and this could be really nerdy for some people, but it is makeweirdmusic.com, so we're gonna get the weirdos. But this gets into I'm a big fan of everything you're talking about. A big fan of electronic music and of sequencing and that line of performance, human interaction, and where's that line? And I can remember the Zappa cover story, the cover issue of Keyboard Magazine, where he really got into a lot of this and the synclavier. Kurt, have you gotten to work with probably a stupid question, but you've gotten to work with Frank's synclavier and sequencing computers? Is that
Well, the when I was working at the Zappa house, the synclavier was not fully operational.
okay?
Excuse me. So, I mean, the closest that I have come to that is the Arturia model of
Right.
the synclavier, which actually adds more features to it.
Sure.
But it's such a overwhelming machine, and on many levels, it has a unique way of producing sound, which gives it a particular quality. But in terms of what it can do, I think our technology has caught up in a lot of ways. It's like I would use the synclavier for a particular sound,
Right.
which would be the FM part of that
That makes sense.
instrument.
Yeah.
Now, sampling and the sequencing, I would probably do elsewhere.
Right.
But that's about as close as I've gotten. I have the Arturia model, which is fantastic, and it actually appears on the record. So on the black ball elsewhere, Chris is playing patches from that Arturia synclavier.
Oh, really? Okay. That's I was not gonna ask too many details on what was doing what, but that's a nice one to know about.
I mean, there was no second option. If we were this record, I had to play synclavier patches. There was,
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one. No, well, you raised a great point, Kurt, about how technology has moved ahead. And I was speaking to someone about this just the other day. What's interesting, though, about Zappa's use of it on Dance Me This and Jazz from Hell and everything, as you well know, he maxed out the memory. He got the biggest hard drives you could get at that point, and he had great samples. So he kind of blurred the line where it's quote unquote real instruments. That's also a word that I wonder, like, what's real, what's not real? Because to me, this record's real. I put it on, and I have an emotional response to audio information. Isn't that real? I mean,
I agree. I that's a beautiful thing to hear after working so hard on this record and being so close to it that it's hard to separate myself from it. But now to hear you say that you have an emotional response to it is it's rewarding for me to hear.
It's real, and also one of the things that reading the libretto and picking up on the storyline, it makes me think about because Chris, you're asking about the nature of consciousness as you get into AI, and then that gets into the question again. The movie The Matrix, the series, is so brilliant because what's real? Like, is this experience real? Are we, so when people are really dogmatic about samples, not samples, real, not real, I kind of go, guys, gals, you can't really be dogmatic about this. And the Jazz from Hell Zappa thing really defines that, because he took these really, really good oboes and pianos and upright basses and stuff and sampled them. So that's why those records, to me, they still, So, okay, great. So we've talked about where that line is. I'd like to get a few thoughts on some specific stuff. So let's play a little bit here. And, of course, we won't have any copyright problems because we're talking to the composer.
and the record label and the publishers.
So you can hear that? Beautiful. And of course, a nice one of the small pieces on this. Tell us a little about For No More, because that's a piece that you've worked on for a few years, right? Is that?
Yeah, that's from my first semester at Berklee College of Music. That was probably the third or fourth piece of music I wrote ever.
Wow,
And
which is crazy.
Keneally and I thought about putting on Opera Music Volume 1, but, we decided to save it for Volume 2, and then there was never a place for it. And then so we did it here, finally. After 20-something years, it comes out. People can hear it.
That's great, and that says so much that it's one of your first pieces, and that's an interesting thing with creative people, and I've heard that a number of times. There's a lot of creative people where something really early is just comes from a place, and um, uh, I'd love to hear that in like a rock band arrangement actually too, because there's some great stuff on there for a drummer and a bunch of
I would love that. Please make it happen.
yeah, that's and then I want to talk about some of the titles here too, and we'll listen to a few other little moments. Before they were pay poor clips, so that's kind of funny. And is that's one of your pieces, Kurt? Or
We did them together.
that's a cooperative, yeah. So is
Yeah.
that?
So
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
well, one of the most fun parts of this project for me were making these little cinematic connecting tracks,
Mhm.
and before there were pay-for clips is one of them. Um, yeah, Chris basically gave me a folder full of text-to-speech files of the dialogue that he wanted, with various computerized voices, and I had to string them together into these little vignettes that moved the story along and gave you a sense of the world that we live in. And for me, it was some of the most fun, and I got to be creative with it, but it tying back into Frank Sinclavier work, it has elements of it, because when you listen to a record like Civilization Phase 3 and Dance Me This, you have really dense music happening alongside sound, right? Like sound effects. It's like the audio movie where he's sound painting huge landscapes. Like one of the mind-blowing tracks to me on Dance Me This is Wolf Harbor, for that reason. Now, like a seamless, it's like a new thing to me. It's just, there's no separation between the pitches and the sounds that he's created of a bay, and you can hear the buoys creaking and things like that. So these little pieces were like that. It's I got to paint the forest in the background, find samples of writing on a chalkboard, and putting them through different impulse responses to make it sound like the voices were coming through a speaker. All of those little details were so much fun to put together.
That's why, folks, this is one to get on CD, because I've heard this one on streaming, but I've also heard it on the CD, and it's one of those ones where that bit of clarity and depth that you're going to get is really important. And thanks for tying that in, because that of course to have that Zappa stepping stone of audio painting as an inspiration.
I think was why not, in a lot of ways, right? Why not? What's the problem? We have 12 chromatic pitches, but it doesn't mean that's all you have to use. The technology allows for things like sound painting, so
Sure.
Why not?
Sure.
So it's a perfect excuse for me to do that.
As Perez once said, I'm paraphrasing, someday some musical mortician is going to fill electronic music full of rules.
Right, and speaking of rules, it's interesting that you of course you answered a question that wasn't asked there, Kurt, when you mentioned that there's more than the 12 tones, and that gets right to the Western view of music, where that's we've got the way we've split the octave up, and of course all around the web people are talking about this video that's out right now about Western music, white supremacy, European music, Has something been taught with a singular perspective? And I think records like this kind of address that the right way and say, yeah, there's stuff between those 12 notes. There's rhythms that are not, the ones you're supposed to keep it to. Have you guys seen that video, or you have any thoughts on that, or that whole discussion? Have you seen
I have
that?
many thoughts on it. I don't know if I'd be prepared to vocalize any of those thoughts on a forum, but
Right.
personally, I will say though, just back to for me, this is not about let's ignore the 12 chromatic pitches. In fact, it's the opposite for me, because I was a music theory composition major. I just always wanted to know how music worked.
Yeah.
And because I inherited this Western perspective, now there's a big stress on pitch in the Western tradition. And it's unique. It's basically technology. And I was thinking of this before when you mentioned the piano. The piano was technology. It was some of the most advanced technology of its day. And I read this somewhere, and I wish I could remember the source, but basically equal temperament, the system of 12 tones, could not have been achieved until we were able to calculate the 12th root of 2 in mathematics. So it was online with the most scientific advances of the day.
Sure.
And what it did was allow composers to be able to modulate in between keys without worrying about the natural overtones clashing and all of those things. It was a beautiful mathematical compromise, and it's still incredibly useful. I don't believe that it has been exhausted. People might think that they might not be interested in that, and they'd pursue some other microtonal thing, which is great, because there are cultures in the world that have developed microtonal practices.
Yeah,
but
most of the world, yeah.
Not about cancel culture is my point.
Yeah.
It's still useful. It's still beautiful. It can still give you an emotional response, but just add this other stuff to your palette. That's a
great wrap up. And I think it's a ripe enough topic that we should do this again, just about that. And I'll say, I will say two things about that video, just to share a bit about it. Bad title, because, white supremacy in the past 4 months of where America's gone has taken on a whole other focus. They should have maybe called it something else, because it goes in a different direction. It's a bad title. And then the other thing I'll say is they actually, to the credit of both the host and the one professor he talks to, over and over they do say what you just said, which is, oh, Western music, fantastic, wonderful. The one guy was more into later composers than Beethoven, but he said over and over, wow, tons of great stuff in European. So I think you also put that perfectly, that it's not about canceling one or the other, but maybe learning a bit more about.
In my music business class,
yeah,
the final project, I've been teaching music business for 10 years now, and the final project has always been you have to release a song on iTunes and Spotify. You have to have a project, some kind of project. You can write it yourself. You can get a friend to do it with you. You can use a band. There's no limitation. And I say very specifically, there is no genre requirement. You must believe in what you're doing. That is the requirement. And so we've had all kinds of projects, like spoken word projects, tons of hip hop projects, a lot of rock projects, some classical pieces, all kinds of vocal expressions. I do try to have in my classroom, you have free expression to express your musical ideas without worrying that I'm going to tell you that Beethoven is cool and your music is shit. It's just not going to happen.
No, exactly. And it sounds like everyone's on the same page. Beethoven is cool, and so is something else. Jumping back to the record, Cribbage, again, that's almost like a separate record of its own. Those variations, and there's stuff in there that gets into. To me, it sounds like it's breaking all kinds of, Western rules and tonal music rules. So I can hear that you've got no limits going on.
When I wrote it, Webern obviously is a primary influence on that piece, and he was famed for writing these very mathematical short pieces, and so the joke was it was either my longest piece or my shortest album.
Right, right.
You know.
That's. I want to go to one right now, and I think I know who the tribute is here. But tell me. Beautiful. And
Thank you.
and that's variation 10 Lun. Is that for Doug Lun?
Yeah, he
Uh,
passed
uh,
away while I was writing it.
Yeah, this what a loss, what a wonderful human being, and got to know him a bit, and got to see him play, so many times. Kurt, was Doug a friend of yours?
I never met Doug. No, we have a lot of mutual friends, but unfortunately, I never got to meet him in person. I'm a
Yeah.
bit of a recluse, so I just never got the chance to meet him and hang out.
Okay.
But it was a pleasure to work on that track for him. It really is gorgeous.
Yeah. No, absolutely. As soon as I saw that, I thought, well, this got to be for Doug. Um, yeah, wonderful player, and it weaves right into a lot of the connections. I saw him. I was very young. I saw him with Andy Summers in about 1989 or something. So rest in peace, Doug. But people that don't know that name, please go look up Doug Lund. He's played on a few records from Mike Keneally. And that's my segue. Let's talk a little bit about. There's a wonderful video you guys put out there of Mike Keneally tracking this beautiful solo. Tell us a little bit about how Of course, you've known Mike for decades, but his connection to this record. Give me a little insight there.
Well, we needed a great guitar player, and he was the best guitar player I knew. So we said, "Hey, Mike, you want to play this solo?" And he said, "Okay." That's a great story, right?
That's as good as it gets. And there's we'll put a link somewhere here. There's a great video of him tracking the solo, and I think there's a couple people in
Is that public? Because I think that's not a public video.
Oh, it wasn't? Okay, you sent it to me one time. I guess it was
Yeah.
a feed of some sort. But well, hopefully that gets out there, because just a burning solo. And now
I
this.
mean, that was the warm up for the one that he played. So we heard that one, and we're like, "Holy shit!" And then he sent us the real one. We're like, "Holy!" We just texted expletives to each other. We're like, "This is amazing! Oh my god!"
That guy. I mean, we could, but
Because that song, man, the soloist, it's got to be really good. Because we get a whole 6-minute chunk of just the soloist.
yeah. No, it's, and he's one of those people who can do that.
Right.
One of the things too about your music in general, Chris, but this record and the track we just played, Variation 10 Lun, what's unique, I think, is that you're able to capture, as Frank would say, the statistical density. So there's all this stuff going on. There's some really beautiful harmonic questions being asked. There's rhythmic stuff that's impossible to play on this record. But there's melody. I mean, you take a track like that, you can whistle it, you can kind of, and I think that's something that goes back to your records, Lionheart, and your piano record. So melody,
Melody is a primary first level focus on almost all my music. It just has to have a melody. Like even the 12-tone stuff, like I refuse to. The jokes are always like, "Well, it doesn't matter what note you pick. Oh, it's picking up." It totally matters. It totally has to be a melody. It totally has to be memorable in that way. I really stress melody a lot in my lessons that I teach and in my compositions. I mean, I think melody should be a primary focus. I think too many composers, young composers especially, like eschew melody for things like cool harmonic tricks and stuff like that. But you got to hang your hat on a melody. That's, you know, if I sound like pop trash for saying that, that's fine.
No, well, you and I have talked for years about our shared love for pop music, and melodies have to be that's a great T-shirt though. You got to hang your hat on a melody, and yeah, that's a really good point. Give us
because I don't want to write music just for the academics. I want to write it for everybody. I want everyone to be able to find something and relate to it. And come to them on their terms. Like, what are they interested in? What kind of, genres they into? I don't know. I want to like be pretty democratic about my music. Like,
yeah.
It's not just for a small subset or people who are interested.
That's a beautiful thought. On that note, we want to make sure people know, and we have we point them to your music all the time. But of course, Chris Opperman. What's the best site for the music? Just go to your site.
Yeah,
you can order it.
ChrisOpperman.net/CMFH, Chamber Music from Hell, and you can order it right there.
Yeah.
And please do. We're going to make more music. We're making a so the Are We Living in a Computer Simulation song. What I like about that piece is that there's just so many solutions to it. So if you look at a piece of music as a puzzle, that piece, because it has the kind of the vamp isn't really in time, like it's in a metric space, but it's not really in a time signature. So the bass player and the drummer and the soloist get a lot of freedom to explore their own solution. So we commissioned a couple other solutions from our friends.
Okay.
And we're going to make a little project that's going to have just the keyboard part, so anybody can record their own rhythm tracks or solos over it. Then we're going to have 3 versions of just Ryan and Kurt playing.
Okay.
And then we're going to have 3 soloists playing solos with those versions. So you'll be able to make your own adventure with that piece.
Wow.
So it'll be a whole album of just that piece versus that piece.
That's great. And what I love about that, I love when artists give the record a little bit of a life, a 3-dimensional life, so that people can refer back. That's great, Chris, because it's 2020, and we're not. You've got to market and sell, and we're doing this for commerce. You've got to do things with creative ideas. So I love to hear that, and that means 3, 6, 9 months from now, there's different ways that people can find their way back to this record. So that's great, and with all the time in the world, right? Now tell us, is there going to be any further video stuff, animation stuff? Is there something visual continuing with this project?
That's Kurt's department, so I'll let Kurt.
Kurt, yeah. Is there that you can speak about?
I love the idea of it. There's nothing that we've specifically planned as of now, but now that you bring it up, it does kind of put my brain back in there, and I'm curious about what track I would approach. But I'm definitely interested in visualizing music. I've never it's kind of a side hobby of mine to make videos, but with the background of music theory and that type of thing, where I'm not just interested in seeing things bounce in time based on the volume of the track. I want to see the structure of something like the Cribbage Variations, where pitch relations are there's a visible you're able to look at the piece as it plays and hopefully help you understand it a little more. So I mean, it's definitely a long-term goal of mine to figure those things out, but because it's a hobby and I'm not like a professional graphics or video guy, it takes me a while. So I often will work on something else in the meantime, but I would love to see the Cribbage Variations as some kind of music visualization where you could actually see the 12-tone stuff at work. Because I think it would help listeners that are not necessarily familiar with the process to be able to see those relationships as they happen. But that's a long-term thing, I think.
And I do want to say
thank you for bringing
that your video for Waking Up, the visualization, when I first saw the water with the stars overlaid on the water, and about how the story is about fish in the sea looking up the sky and wondering what's up there, and then having that. I was just like, whoa, that's deep. I mean, just a beautiful image you thought of, and so
Well, thanks.
thoughtful.
It was when it clicks, it's satisfying. When I know I have the right image and underneath the music, then it becomes something else. You get the difference tone where it's the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
That's what we're looking for. And Kurt, let's a little bit about your own original music and other projects. Of course, I've seen your Facebook. Is there a Kurt Morgan site on the web? Otherwise, what's
I'm
the?
definitely in the works. I'm definitely in the works right now, and I'm excited. This is a great time to mention it. But on September 28th, there's a new website is going to be launched that Zappa and his friend Steven have been putting together. It's called Reward Music, and it's basically a place for musicians to host all of their content and to get 100% of the earnings and have a direct relationship with their fans.
Great.
Now, and you that's the short explanation of it. It's a combination of a website builder, social media, fundraising, merchandise, streaming. I could teach lessons on there. And that official launch happens on the 28th. So right now I have a page set up with a few things on it, but it's not, the full official launch is the 28th. But you can go to Kurt Morgan /rewardmusic.com.
Okay.
And that's how you'd find all of my work. And I'm also going to be selling chamber music from hell on there. So if you're interested as a fan in supporting us directly,
Sure.
where we get most of the proceeds, all of the proceeds, this is going into our next project fund. So, if you're interested, that's the place to go, because it goes directly to us. And, that's it. I'm excited about it. It's the best idea that I've seen so far with regard to that. How do we make a living problem?
Well, absolutely. And there's a lot there. And before we go to a couple more questions, that's one of the questions I had on my list is about before there were Pay Poor clips, which is obviously a funny title, a very satirical title. But talk to me a little bit about that, because you both have jobs outside of. I mean, you play in a very popular worldwide touring band, and you get to do that. And Chris, you teach, and you do a lot of other things in music publishing and whatnot. And as part of my question, let's remember Beethoven, who was one of the first people to, since he's come up so much, one of the first people to really say, no, I'm going to get paid to perform. He didn't have patrons. He was kind of one of the first people that didn't do the funding from the dukes and the kings and the kings and queens and the churches. He also was very early, if not the first, to publish his music, which I think So you have this interesting thing where, and then straight on down the line, most composers, I forget who it was, but someone was an insurance salesman. Who was that?
Charles Ives.
Charles Ives, and Philip Glass. Philip Glass, the great Philip Glass, drove a taxi. He was a plumber till pretty late in the game. I mean, there's a story he tells. He had Einstein on the beach, and he was still fixing plumbing and stuff. So my question is, give me some thoughts on this. It's a daily debate with musicians. How do we make a living? Myself included. I've got a day job. I'm a tech. I'm a tour manager. I'm getting back into journalism. But how do we balance this with the fact that the cost of doing art in 2020 is not what it was in even 2000, or certainly not 1980, or the time of Frank Zappa? I mean, he spent six figures, going into high six figures for one instrument, the synclavier, when, as you said, you can get it as an app, But you can also get a free version of Pro Tools. You get Reaper. You get free synthesizers, plugins, compressors, delays, recording. You have free Bandcamp, SoundCloud, YouTube. You've got free. So where do we reconcile kind of that all of these inputs to being artists are different than this time that we're comparing? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, how do we balance that out? I'd like to know.
I was watching the Ken Burns jazz documentary, and he was talking about how they used to get 75 cents for 2 songs, and I was jealous. And it was from 1917 or something. I mean,
Sure.
my pay has gone from $15 plus shipping per CD, which I'm so grateful people now in 2020 are paying us that for the record. Like,
Direct.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Direct. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. What I'm about to say is not, I mean, I'm very grateful. But that was the primary source of income for recordings. You bought recordings, you mailed the recordings. Then we had iTunes, and you bought digital downloads of the recordings. That wasn't so bad. It was fine. But, I went from 15 to 10. And now with Spotify, I get about 3 cents if you listen to a whole album on Spotify. So that's like a 98% reduction in pay between 1998 and 2020 in terms of like the mainstream music consumption model is.
Sure.
That's not a sustainable model.
Right. And to
like
play
even using all samples and everything, like Kurt's time is very valuable.
Of course.
You have to hire musicians, you gotta have to hire artists. Like, I could not have done this project if not for the generosity of our fan base, pledging to the Kickstarter, buying the CDs, telling their friends to buy the CDs, buy the physical product. Like, this would have been impossible to do if we hadn't been able to raise funds through those means.
Absolutely. To play devil's advocate, we just compared a physical object, the CD that you're going to have forever, to a file that you don't even own. It just flies by, and so there's something there. And personally, I think there should be no free streaming to get down the record. No, it should be subsidized.
Here's one easy way to fix it. The problem with Spotify and all those services is that the way the money gets put into the pool is, YouTube is problematic for other reasons, but the money gets put into a pool and gets allocated based on the number of plays total, right? Whereas, so in the old days, if I go to a record store and I buy my CD for $10 or Frank Zappa CD for $10, that's Frank Zappa's money, right? But everyone's putting in, $10, $15 into Spotify who's paying for it. So if I listen to Einstein on the Beach, sure. So let's say I spend the whole month, I listen to Einstein on the Beach a bunch. Why can't Philip Glass get $15 for me?
Okay.
Or whatever that royalty pool is. Why can't it be individual listening patterns?
Okay. Yeah. So a couple devil's advocate questions. I bought Einstein on the Beach, so I've already paid the retail price for it, and sometimes I bought it on vinyl and CD. So see, the waters get muddy right away, because then a consumer like me who has 12,000 CDs, you start saying, well, I paid for it. I paid full retail, so I did the part that you said. I went to the record store. So then that gets cloudy. How do we? I don't know the answers, but my whole stance always is it's a lot cloudier than we. You know what I mean? We're very binary about it. And then back to the record stores. When I'm older than you guys, when I went and bought a Frank Zappa record for $15, I think Ship Arriving Too Late was the first one that came out when I was a young fan. The $15, Frank got what, $1 of that? Maybe I don't know what his.
He was his own label at that point.
So he got more. That's true. That's true. But let's back up a little bit to when it was Warner or whatever. Or use another example. Let's use the Cheap Trick record that came out that year. You got my point. Most people got $1 or under. So it's just so it wasn't that much better.
They probably got like $1.50 or $2. But that's fair. I mean, for a signed artist.
For the songwriters did. Yeah.
But Frank was in a better financial situation by being the label.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's the different example. But he was very rare. But I love that. I say this all to cheer what Kurt just said, because I love these new solutions where it's just totally direct, artist in control of all the material. And I love this idea of it's kind of a multifaceted site, as Kurt's saying. There's going to be lessons on there and all kinds of other stuff, but we need some kind of I like the idea of what happens in England, where you pay for the BBC in your taxes. I think that's great. I mean, I know that gets into a whole other socialism discussion, but it works. It's a tiny amount of money, and then artists and movie makers, everyone gets money from that. So maybe, if we're going to fund Boeing, let's fund Chris Opperman. I mean, and Kurt Morgan.
Cool. I'm all about it. Fund us. Give us
Um,
money.
I also, yeah, I'm also a big fan of Bandcamp because again, Bandcamp, really gives, a really good deal to artists, and during this pandemic, they've been doing, as you know, is this record's on Bandcamp, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I thought so, and so that's great because and folks, Fridays Bandcamp, 100% to the artist. So
Yeah, and the digital version on Bandcamp includes the booklet. You get a digital version of the booklet.
yeah, so this is but yeah, those gray areas are what I'm interested in, and YouTube. Everyone uses YouTube, and they allow bootleg versions of all of our music up there until you take it down as an artist.
I mean, the thing about YouTube is that they have the same kind of business model where everything gets thrown into a pool and the number of streams determines it. But you're competing with every type of content, including like cat videos or,
Sure. But no one's boycotting YouTube. That's the funny part of it. Yeah. But I'm glad though, bringing it back to the focus of your record. I'm glad that you are doing it in a way that people can directly support you now and with the upcoming reward music. This is exciting to hear, and we're definitely going to promote the heck out of that here at Make Weird Music because there's so many artists.
I mean, I think it's so fantastic. I mean, artists starting out, I mean, it's such a fantastic business model.
Yeah. It's so
yeah,
look.
I
Sorry.
If I may, just really quick, it's one of the things that I am concerned about with the way that music is kind of packaged, sold, and basically not purchased. You have there are two sides of it. You have the creators and consumers, and there's often a lot of overlap. Like the creators we're consumers as well, but we have so many people that are so used to not having to pay, to being able to think of a song that they might want to hear or something like it and then go and get it. And I think and I'm guilty of this too, where if there has to be some kind of dialogue happening between, there's a responsibility, I think, from both sides, the artist and the consumer. The artist has to start somewhere. We can't continue to give everything away for free in this kind of desperate Hail Mary situation all the time. I think you really have to make an effort as an artist to see the value in your own work and stand behind it.
Sure.
And then maybe dialogue between the consumers and the creators will begin. And because I do believe that there are consumers that just don't understand. They may think that I have a certain type of lifestyle because I'm in a touring band. Well, the truth of the matter is it's fun and very rewarding, and I get to travel and meet all these people. But financially, it's been taking more and more of a hit every year because of this model. So that's not sustainable. That means if you want art of a certain quality, which is the other part of it, the quality aspect of it. If you're a consumer and you can't tell the difference between really good wine and the stuff in the box, then what's the point?
Right.
That's so I think the current model is reinforcing art of a certain type to be made, and that is what is already popular. So what does that tell you? That's like the most good-looking people in your high school are the ones that everyone is still trying to be, It's just not sustainable, So let's start the conversation between me and my fans and you and your fans,
sure.
and let them know, like, it's we're all forced to take whatever work that we can right now. And, like, I still believe in the power of direct and, honest art. I think we need it more than ever.
Sure.
And I like to think my art has a certain quality and level that you might not get somewhere else. But the show is called Make Weird Music.
Yeah.
And if there's nothing more weird than something that isn't popular, so let's keep the weird music going, support your local business.
Amen.
And let's do it.
It's absolutely, and it could be possibly a generational thing too, because I work with a lot of younger musicians and artists, and you're right. Some of them, the concept of purchasing a physical object is an oddity. Again, to be fair though, some of them have computers filled with what would have to me been $10,000 worth of software in 1987. So people who code are asking these questions too, because if you want a new compressor, you just download it. I'm sorry.
There's also that whole other rabbit hole of the manufacturers of technology are a business too, and I think there is a rabbit hole aspect of it can prevent you from actually making stuff.
Too much stuff.
If you're of the mindset that I have too many choices, you have to make a decision at some point. Like creativity to me is about making decisions and sticking with it long enough so that you actually build a theme and have something to remember. Otherwise, it's just like roll the dice. Yeah. Or just distracting yourself with I can't do this until I get this.
Yeah.
There's no excuse for that anymore.
Big problem.
I mean, these are our industries that we're talking about. I'm a customer of them. But if the goal is to make art, you better stop at some point and just make the art.
No, that's anyway. Beautiful point, and you're right. It's overkill right now, because I know many people who they just keep downloading plugins and kind of write the melody. So we'll make sure that people know about that reward music, because as you say, that'll be a portal for some of your music, which I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I hope the Kurt Morgan record is coming soon. As a fan, that's what I'm looking most forward to, is hearing Kurt what he can do on his own music now.
I'm going to jump back. Yes, well put, Chris. Let's look at some of our YouTube friends and a lot of great people on here. Hey, Robin G is there. Dan Cooper's asking, hey, what's the thought behind the robotic Stephen Hawking type voice? And you guys touched on that a little bit.
Well, this is a weird thing. We couldn't use... So obviously in the future, you'll have robots speaking with human voices that sound human. But if we use human voices, the audience would not know it's a robot. And thus that we would defeat our whole purpose. So it is totally the most unrealistic part of the album. The most realistic part of the album is a giant billboard on the moon for Coca-Cola. That is totally realistic and horrifying. But the least realistic moment is all the robots speaking robot voices and not voices like you or I. There's already like AI learning voices that'll sound totally real, totally human. And in the future, that's what you'll hear. You won't hear, beep, boop, beep, boop,
Right. It's happening too. I'm sure we've all heard some of these synthetic voices. Man, it's getting rough. And I'm sure as a dad, that's something too. Like, how much do my kids hear these synthetic things? Question for Kurt. Curious about the quality of the voice samples. Again, voice sample question. And how would you compare them to the Sonic Pro samples? Logic Pro, sorry, this person says. How would you compare the voice samples?
We're talking about the computerized voice samples?
Yeah.
Is that what the question?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not familiar with the Logic Pro samples, so unfortunately I can't really compare them to anything. But just to follow up with Chris on that, I think his choice to make it obvious that these characters are robotic also adds a kind of the humor element to the whole thing. I mean, we're basically witnessing a science fiction play, And as he said that, I'm reminded of the opening track, "Where Is Everybody?" where the AI comes into the scene, and I part of my job was to make it sound like the AI is walking into the scene. Now you hear actual human footsteps coming upstairs, and you also hear the kind of robotic machinery happening at the same time. So it's ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not supposed to be realistic. It's basically you have something with legs and it sounds like it's rolling at the same time, So it doesn't, in that regard, it's not supposed to be realistic and convincing. It's supposed to be entertaining and to project the actual message, which is this is an AI. It's not a human being. But anyway, so in a general answer to questions about quality, sometimes you don't want it to be the most realistic sounding thing because it's okay, that there are moments in there where you can hear, that's definitely not a real person playing that flute. And that's okay. These are like glitches in the matrix. You could look at it that way, or you could look at it as actual robotic musicians, which puts a whole other spin on it. So,
I gotta say, the trombone, the instrument apparatuses that all the robots have was Mark Buckingham's idea, the artist. He was the one who was like, they all have instruments protruding from them in all different directions. So when I say he plays this cosmic trombone, all the trombone parts are by Jason Camilio, by the way. Great job. But
Yes.
this is cosmic trombone, that the robot has a trombone attached to his body for no reason. Just has one.
it is.
Yes, wonderful trombone player, and I saw the discussion you had with him too, Chris. Great player. Are you guys familiar with Captured by Robots? This group.
Yeah.
Oh man, please Google that. A real quick brief on it. It's this crazy guy who is he's a robot fanatic. He builds robots, and he's a hydraulics fanatic. And he goes on tour. It's one guy with about 8 robots, and they're animatronic. But what's interesting is they actually play. So he's got a thing holding a drumstick that hits the snare drum. It's driven by a sequencer. There are metallic fingers plucking a bass and fretting the 7th fret at the right moment. So it's interesting because you got to go, okay, these aren't sequences. Things are playing instruments. So check them out. And I also would demand a commission from Chris Opperman for Captured by Robots, because it's perfect for you guys, because it's it's AI, but it's not. But going back to some questions here. So let's see. But Kurt, I think you'd love it because it's got that. They're not perfect. It's got that rickety thing about robots that I think he kind of builds into it, as you did, in an audio sense. A bit of Kurt violin. Say again?
I said it sounds like a lot of fun. It sounds like I'm picturing a robotic kiss right now. Yeah.
It's really crazy. Yeah. And the whole shtick is that the robots captured him and they've enslaved him. So he's got chains on him, and the robots are insulting him as a stupid human. There's all this stuff going on. Kurt Weill. Yeah, that's definitely a Kurt Weill flavor. Some people are saying. Bartok. These are all people that I know that you both love. And Dan Cooper says, Chris, I find it fascinating. Some of the pieces are so rich in the arrangements, and others are so minimalist. So is that just natural to you, or was there a conscious attempt to say, hey, let me keep some of these pieces really tiny? And did you even think about that, Chris?
Each piece has its own kind of set of logic. And so when I go into it, I don't necessarily know what it is. The 144,000 definitely was the most minimalist piece on the album. And it's a 12-tone piece, the Cribbage Variation, where you just go up and down one row, kind of slowly throughout time. But it's different vibes. I don't know. I don't know what I'm writing until I start writing it. So it's hard to kind of describe that. Usually I go in through the melody, or I go in through some kind of like idea. That's kind of a tough question, but I hear all kinds of things, and range of expression, range of genre, those are all things I think about a lot, where I don't want to feel like I have stylistic limitations,
That's perfect. That rings true with what I would have thought. But that was the question. Yeah, someone, a few people just ordered it. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Hooray!
Keep doing that, folks, and tell your friends. And one of the beautiful things, Kurt said it before. make weird music. One of the real great aesthetics of Anthony is that weird doesn't necessarily mean wacky and strange and weird noises. Wow, that is wonderful. But it means, as Kurt very clearly said, just going outside the norm, doing the something unconventional, not trying to kind of figure out what's popular and go there. So let's see. Okay, so we're going to wrap up, but just seeing if there's just one or two other questions. A couple people asking for animation versions. Yeah, I think that's Kurt. You're going to be a busy man that people want to see.
I think I have a new fundraising idea.
Let's do it.
No, that would be great. I mean, they're rather time consuming, but I'm with them. I want to see it too.
I mean, you got to check out the waking up video. I mean, Kurt. I mean, the thing, and then I mean, you got to watch it. It's so good.
Yes, that's the guy. I do have to see that. Okay, great. Oh, and someone's saying that Kurt, what you just said about the sound effects in motion. This person has obviously listened to this record on a theatrical sound system, surround sound, and they said it's amazing in that format. So that's that's really great. Yeah. Well, I'm excited that this record has a bunch of. Well, it's a young record. It's just released recently, and I'm doing what I can to tell people about it. But I'm also excited that there's this idea of bed tracks or stems or whatever the correct term is, where people can participate and kind of bring some more life to it. And I love to.
Well, part of the reason is that when I was a kid, it was so hard to learn to play in that kind of Zappa-esque way, or because you either play along with the Zappa recordings, or you I don't know what you do. So I thought it'd be great for young musicians to have like Ebersol models, where instead of like a jazz tune, you've got Kurt and Ryan bashing your face in, and you better play something good,
right?
Or else.
I love it. I love it. Well, that's
Toss you around.
That's awesome. Let's listen to a little bit of this on the way out. Wow, I'll let that take us out a little bit. But what I love about the computer simulation is it's one of the tunes with the most evocative, emotive stuff going on, which, such irony there. As is a lot of the other parts, but just that one having that title, really brings it home. Well, gentlemen, we could talk for hours, and, I want to thank you for giving us 90 minutes of your time today. And anything that you wanted to say or touch on that we didn't get to? Is there a closing?
I mean, I'm so grateful to everybody. You have no idea how grateful I am that Kurt and I made the exact record we wanted to make with no compromises whatsoever. We didn't compromise the material, we didn't compromise in the production, we didn't compromise in the art, nothing. And to have it be so well received by so many people around the world and getting reviews and interviews and stuff, I mean, it makes my heart just sing, man. It's so awesome. I can't thank everybody enough. Like, thank you so much for making this possible. Like, I really appreciate it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I echo that. Thank you.
That's great, guys.
And other than that, thanks. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate you having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
And Andre, when are we going on tour again, man?
I know. When anyone's going on tour, we'll get our biohazard outfits and we'll figure something out. I think you saw a couple months ago someone had some kind of thing like that. There was a viral picture of, hey, maybe that's what happens, and then we we make a theme out of it, right? It's the artificial intelligence group, and no one knows if it's actually humans under the rubber skin. But Kurt, a pleasure to get to speak with you in depth, and I hope to do that again soon. Yeah, best of luck, guys, with the record. And let's do this again when there's some new components that are out there in the world, because I'm sure they'll be very weird.
Thank you, and thanks to Anthony too. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Andre. Thank you.
We'll see you guys. Thank you, YouTube people, for stopping in and make weird music.
Make weird music. Kurt, you have to say it.
Music.
There you go.
Make weird